Thank you very much. Let's be seated. So, a brief word of welcome to this very worthy enterprise organized by the Rebuild Nigeria initiative. To do that, I'd like to call on Pastor Itwa Ighodalo to give us some welcome remarks. I think he'll be joined by Dr. Fatima Akilu in that enterprise. But let's hear from Pastor first.
Good morning, Excellencies, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Itwa Ighodalo, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to this second in our series of dialogues by the Rebuild Nigeria Initiative. The Rebuild Nigeria Initiative. The first conversation that we had was in Abuja. I believe it was in the month of February or March, earlier on this year, where on May, my memory begins to fail me. It's not an evidence of anything, just good health. So let nobody start to say, this man, you're getting on. So we launched the Rebuild Nigeria Initiative earlier on this year at the Yaradua Conference Center in Abuja as part of our efforts towards nation building, equity and justice, and providing a level playing field for everyone wanting a better and more prosperous Nigeria, a better and more prosperous Nigeria. And on my way here, as I was meditating in the car and thinking and looking back over Nigeria, I realized that to get a really outstanding Nigeria, we need to do a lot of work. We need to do a lot of work. A lot of people have along the line slept on their rights. And all of a sudden, we're in a situation where the nation is not properly defined. The ethos are not clear. The vision is not coherent. And there are all sorts of issues going on in Nigeria. Let me give you a background to the Rebuild Nigeria Foundation or Rebuild Nigeria Initiative. This group emerged with a mission to accelerate progress towards a new Nigeria where the rights and well-being of its citizens are upheld accelerate progress towards a new Nigeria where the rights and well-being of the citizens are upheld. We have a bold vision for a new Nigeria, united, equitable, just, and inclusive, a nation at peace. I'm one of the proponents that say that Nigeria was probably not intended to be what it is. It was probably a device or a thought of our British colonial masters who thought that they would have dominance over people in Africa by putting together one of the largest nations on that continent, and by that way continue to dominate Africa, and founded Nigeria mainly to satisfy their needs for raw materials and their expansion of their commonwealth. And therefore, there was no national thinking, there was no national ethos, and most of the things were purely economic. But we believe that a fair and just and equitable society is central to creating shared values and a sense of belonging for all Nigerians, irrespective of ethnicity, tribe, or religion. What we're trying to say is that what was not properly conceived, if we can come together, we can make it work for good and build a truly viable, strong, and economically powerful nation. 1 out of every 4 people of dark skin is a Nigerian, and it goes to show the power base that Nigeria is. Not only that, we have some of the strongest intellectual capacities anywhere in the world. And if you plant a Nigerian anywhere in the world with the right atmosphere, he tends to excel. Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world." Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. What is really missing in Nigeria is that small group of thoughtful, sincere, committed, dynamic, passionate, visionary, and sacrificial group of people who are determined to see a better Nigeria. The odds are strong against them. The risk is very high. The system is not accommodating of such a group because of the very, very strong vested interest, but they must be that group and they must keep going. So what we're trying to do in Rebuild Nigeria is to build bridges among all the various groups who are thinking of a fair and equitable Nigeria. We have 4 specific goals. Number 1, to facilitate national peace and dialogue. One of the challenges of Nigeria is that there's not enough dialogue, there's not enough conversation. There are people in different pockets, everyone feeling slightly aggrieved about one thing or the other and thinking that their interests have not been properly represented or protected. We believe that if we can facilitate peace dialogues between Christians and Muslims, peace dialogues between the North and the South, peace dialogues between IPOB and Fulani, peace dialogues between the people in Asaba who still feel very aggrieved that there was a massacre in 1968, 67, 68, and who still have not recovered from that massacre. Peace dialogues for people who think and who rightly feel that their properties were harnessed and there was no compensation. Peace dialogues for the minorities who think that they have been really, really marginalized and they're not reckoned with in Nigeria, bringing everybody to the fore, and making our diversity a source of strength and not a source of division. To foster national restructure and reconciliation, knowing that everyone has a right to be a Nigerian. To define and promote standards in leadership. Define and promote standards in leadership. You cannot have a country where anybody can just wake up and feel that they can lead without having attained certain standards and having certain competencies and abilities, and then to advocate for good governance and accountability. That is what we are. That is what we're trying to do. And we network with a lot of institutions all over the place and see how they can work. We have networks in the diaspora. We have networks locally here. One of our strong networks, the Murtala Mohammed Foundation, is here, ably represented by Mrs. Adesanya, and she's sharing this platform with us to some extent. So we tend to actively contribute to the advent of a new Nigeria by investing in understanding the core issues driving socio-political conflicts around Nigeria, catalyzing grassroots and leading trust building, facilitating problem-solving dialogues among various groups of people, and establishing what we think would be a peace treaty, because we hold strongly that dialogue is about listening, sharing, and questioning. To this end, we have structured our interventions into 4 strategic clusters. The corporate cluster, which is here represented today, we're hoping to get from this meeting the view of corporate Nigeria from different parts of Nigeria as to what we can do to harness together a strong Nigeria. And this 2023 coming, what do we want to demand of those who are aspiring to political leadership in Nigeria, and insist that this is what will make Nigeria thrive? Deal with all the policy somersaults that make organized private sector a little bit of a challenge in Nigeria. Then we look at the 4th estate cluster, includes conventional and non-conventional international media and their agencies, and the interface between government and citizens in the 4th estate, the people of the press. The advocacy cluster will include local and international NGOs. And then the faith cluster emphasizes the importance of faith-based and cultural institutions in achieving our first 2 goals. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for sparing your time. God bless you all. And I wish us all very, very pleasant dialogue today. I want to thank our moderator and compare, Mr. Yode Delano, SAN, for accepting to drive this process. Thank you very much. I don't know if Fati is available. Is she? Okay, so let's hear a word from Fati, one of the executive directors of the Rebuild Nigeria initiative. Along the line, we will find time to introduce all those who are behind this initiative, just for acknowledgement and recognition. Fati is in Abuja. She's not able to be here physically, but she's going to be sharing a few words.
Good morning, Pastor, and thank you for the introduction. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am so sorry that I cannot be there with you in person today. And I would also like to add to my welcome those of the other members of Rebuild Nigeria who are either in the diaspora or in Abuja and unable to be there in person today. When we talk about peace building, especially peace building in the global south where we reside, an often forgotten cluster and a vital partner is the corporate sector. And it is a testament to your commitment and how important you think this dialogue is that you have all shown up today. And for that, we are very thankful. Rebuild Nigeria is new, but we have staked a claim in the peace space. And what that means is that we have committed to work with multiple partners that are committed to ensuring that we have a Nigeria that we can leave to our grandchildren. When we think about the role that corporate Nigeria itself can play, it is immense. Personally, I have been to a lot of trouble spots in Nigeria, and I've seen the bravery of corporations. They are in spaces that government is not. Very often, even at the heart of conflict, we see corporations, we see banks operating in places that are very remote, making sure that people have access to money, making sure that they are able to carry on their businesses and that life carries on. Because often we forget that there are people that live in conflict zones. So we have also seen corporate Nigeria really emerge and take leadership in gaps and spaces that has been left by government. We've seen the work that a lot of corporations have done in education. A lot of them have done in setting up businesses for people who are marginalized. So what that shows us is that if we work together, we can really define what role corporate Nigeria can play, working with organizations such as ours and others, but also working with the statutory sector. What I've understood and RNM have understood is that we cannot have peace unless we have a whole of society approach. And you that are here today are an essential pillar in that journey. So thank you so much. I look forward to continuing the dialogue and to see where we can go with corporate Nigeria. And I appeal to corporate Nigeria on behalf of RNI that when we talk about peace, that oftentimes the business community and the business world often doesn't really get involved in peace. But I want them to also understand that what you are doing is a step toward peace. Pushing for standards in governance, for example, pushing for leadership, being involved in politics in one way or the other, increasing your corporate social responsibility, delving in areas that are not popular, for example, mental health. These are all areas that foster peace. And we would like to see you partner more in the dialogue space. On that note,
No, because I
No,
heard.
because
I heard
no.
no. I heard no. I heard no. Are we okay? Right. So I'd like to add my own word of thanks to Rebuild Nigeria Initiative. I think they deserve a small round of applause. I heard what Pastor said, what Dr. Fatima said, and I say they deserve a round of applause because we all know the condition of our country. And in recent times, you know, we see Prime Video advertised with the word Japa to Prime Video. Japa being, in the old days, it was Andrew. It's a reflection of the condition of the country. And many of us have conversations amongst ourselves and we say, oh, our parents' generation, did they fail us? Did they not? And yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, telling him about what I was going to be doing here and saying to him that if people don't step up, the same accusations that we make about the generation before is what will be said about us. Did you get into politics? Did you try and influence things? Or are you going to say, oh, politics is run by thugs, politics is this, it needs money, it needs that and the other, and you don't get involved? And I think that is why it is commendable that the Rebuild Nigeria Initiative are taking this stand and contributing their own. I believe the idea is to, in these clusters that Pastor mentioned, is to develop recommendations that can be made to people either in government or aspiring for government, influencers, chambers of commerce, and such entities in order to add their quota and to see how that takes Nigeria forward. To help us, we've heard the four core, they're called pillars that Pastor highlighted. And to help us to bring out the issues surrounding those four pillars, we have four panelist discussants who I will call up to come up to the front here. I start with Mr. Gbenga Akijogbin, who is GM of Eco Distribution. He will come and tell us some things from the side of power. Please come forward, Mr. Gbenga. Give him a round of applause. Encourage him, please. Thank you very much. The second person is Mr. Ray Ateli, who is VP, Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. Encourage him, please. Thank you. The third person, Dr. Yetunde Oyalowo, who is MD, CEO of Market Doctors Nigeria Limited. Please welcome her. Thank you very much. And last but not least, let me just make sure I get this right. Khadija Okunu-Lamidi, who is a presidential aspirant under the banner of the SDP and the CEO of Slice Media Solutions. Please welcome her. They will, in a few minutes, give us their thoughts around the 4 pillars that we have discussed. Okay, we have one more person who's going to join us, Dr. Nick Okoye of the African Enterprise Institute. Is he here? Please come forward. Thank you very much. So before we proceed with our discussions, I'd like to, there's a video. I don't know if you have an outline of today's agenda proceedings. There's a video that is going to be shared. It's going to be played now. It's by Mr. Collins Nweke, who is the Vice President of the Rebuild Nigeria Initiative. He's going to tell us a little bit more about the purpose of the roundtable and the 4 pillars. So if we're ready, can we please
to be upheld? And if so, in which way and manner should that take place? And then finally, we are looking at also advocating for good governance and accountability, which of course, is linked to the third cluster, which is standards in governance. Now, in corporate governance, are there areas that are today lacking and making businesses suffer in terms of economic growth and so on and so forth? What sort of accountability structures, what sort of accountability issues is the country facing that needs to be addressed? Now, we believe that by the time all of these four areas are looked into, dialogued about, we should be able to come up with a report that can then facilitate, more in-depth conversations about this, and of course, channel to the right portals for possible implementation. Now, on that note, I want to thank you for your attention, but also to wish you success in this dialogue with corporate Nigerians. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that expands our knowledge. Those of us who are not as familiar with the Rebuild Nigeria initiative, it expands our knowledge of what the initiative is all about, and even adds to the commendation to which the enterprise is due. Now, before I go to my discussants, I'd like to add one more person, Prince David Iweta, who is National Vice President of NACIMA, National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines, and Agriculture. Can you please join us up here? Now, the way I look at what we should do here, yes, welcome him, please, is not to spend too much time on protocol and matters of that nature, so that we can have a useful interactive discussion, and we can hear thoughts, we can exchange ideas, and we can have a summary of the sort of things that we feel that should be recommended. So I am not going to do the, and you would have noticed that I didn't do it at the beginning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my lords temporal, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is call on each of our discussants first to give their remarks and their thoughts on what we're here to do: corporate cluster, corporate development, economic development, impact on peace, stability. What are the leadership principles within the sectoral confines that they find themselves? After we have those opening remarks, I'll just go down the line, and then we can have, we can pull on some of those threads that come out of it, and have a fruitful discussion. So I'll call first on Mr. Gbenga Akijogwin to give us his own remarks. I think there might be some slides if you're not gonna deal with the slides. So we'll just hear from him, and we'll take each person along the line. But we will not do protocol, but we will do encouragement. So please make him feel welcome. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for inviting me. I want to target my talk towards growth. I work in the power sector, And we would realize, I'm not saying anything new, without constant electricity, the human thinking at home, at work, at play is a bit distorted. What we have presently in the nation, from a personal point of view, is the infrastructure is still very historical. It's not forward thinking. The demands of today are not being met. And I think the foundation of that is because we are of the opinion that electricity is a social thing. So we shouldn't take care of it. We shouldn't pay for it. We shouldn't look after it. Unfortunately, life has changed. Everywhere in the world, there is liquidity issue. So everybody has to pay for every service that we use now. Part of, like I said, I want to look at it from a growth point of view. Part of the problem is that the urban and regional planning, all these things are not held as it ought to be. It's not as if we don't have the laws. It's not as if we don't improve on the laws. But we as a people always want to walk outside what we should, which eventually affects the third and the fourth person we don't know. So where I would come from is, if we have what we call only one national grid, and that national grid is one transmission line, if it breaks up, we have what you call the national collapse. Now it affects everybody. Over time, there's been growth. We should look at having what I'll call concentric circles that link. So if there's a problem somewhere, you can easily backfeed. We don't have that. Also, the amount of money we pump into the infrastructure, we don't see it. And that is because it's not that we don't know what to do. It's not because we don't know how to do it. It's because we don't look at the growth factor to affect everybody. We look at it as, how would I only benefit? In doing that, nobody benefits. So I just want to kickstart on that once we as individuals realize that whatever we do affects the third, the fourth, and the fourth person, even in the power industry, it affects us. So we need to think that if it doesn't affect me directly, it will affect me indirectly. So we need to take care of what doesn't affect us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Akinjobi. I will go straight down. I will note some of the things. I initially thought that we would maybe interrogate a little bit, but I think we should get a little bit more content and views before we take comments from the audience. So if you have comments and questions that you are going to want to pass on to Mr. Akinjobi, please note them down in the interim. Let's take a few more comments. Who's that? So let me go on straight to our next discussant from the Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce. Thank you very much. Please, let's have your comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Ray Artelli. I am Deputy President of the Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce. When we got this invitation, there was no way we would have passed up the opportunity to be here, because what is being discussed today is something that is at the heart of the survival of this country. Rebuild Nigeria initiative, well done for this, and let us continue to hope that the product of your efforts and investments will help to rebuild this country eventually. The Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce, if I may give you a bit background to it, is an organization that has in its fold 70 out of the top 100 Nigerian companies. They are there, as well as key corporates in the United Kingdom. So what it means is that we have a diverse opinion that can represent more or less what corporate Nigeria is thinking. Having said that, let me say as well that the Nigeria British Chamber of Commerce and Rebuild Nigeria Initiative, we have a few things in common, I would say. You want to create stability. We are thinking about stability seriously. Let's just start with that. It is a product that arises from painstaking planning and consistent implementation. That is the only way growth can happen. If you wish it, it will not materialize. If you flag it off we're in the season of politics right now, and quite a lot of lofty thoughts are being bandied about, all right? But that's not where economic growth happens. You need to plan, you need to execute, you need to be consistent, you need to be faithful to that plan. And then you need to have a listening ear, because there are various stakeholders within the Nigerian system. And so you need to monitor what you are implementing and ensure that you take back feedbacks that will help to redirect, especially areas that may not be bringing forth the result that is required, so that you can achieve the objective of making the people happy. What is the business of governance? Keep the people happy, that's all. It's as simple as that. And we can use some highfalutin definitions for it, but that's not it. Let the people be happy. They need basic amenities. They need peace. They need safety and security. Those are the things that they want. And in private sector Nigeria, that is our mission. We want to create wealth, but we cannot create that wealth if the people that we work with are not safe. If our investments are not safe across the various territories of this country, we cannot do that if there are policy somersaults that affect exchange rates, as well as other monetary indicators. It will definitely lead to turmoil. And because of that, there is no way we will be able to achieve our business objectives. And what often happens is that investors start to look across the seas. They are looking at areas where what is missing in your country is available. And those countries may not have the numbers, but they don't mind. They go there. Some West African countries have benefited immensely from what is going on, what is failing to go on in Nigeria. And it is only natural that that will continue. So at this point, it's just an introductory statement. I can really deep dive into specific aspects, but suffice it to say that you can't stumble your way into economic growth. You need to be intentional about it. Thank you.
Encouragement, yes. Thank you very much. Always good. Thank you very much, Mr. Iguateli. I can see Prince talking to Doctor. Doctor, I don't know, I hope you will not mind. I think Prince needs to go. If we can just have his remarks before he takes his leave. So let's hear from Prince Iwata, the National Vice President of NACIMA. Tim shares thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I want to say that quite sooner or later will be done. I never knew of this event until this morning. My friend is here and he has asked me that I can join me for a meeting I'm having at 11 o'clock. So there's a Kofar by me. I must thank the organizers of this very great event. We did enjoy initiatives. I feel that I think it is long overdue. Recognition that the corporate bodies factor in trying to ensure there is and sustainability in our economy and the public sector to get involved is something that it's well out. In a situation of total concern economic development of the public sector and such economy move as expected. In some time, about 50% of the world economy is in the hands of the private sector. While the tendency of the local all members of the association which I represent. And every time to educate some friends that the size of Nigerian economy, for example, the government at $500 billion. The federal government budget annually is just set. The rest of the economy is generally the hand, the private sector is a driver of the economy. But because the government is a competition with the private sector, the economy is so the schools, the private sector, such that they cannot afford and have much money. Apart from those that are in the cabal sector that are in governance, that they want the government of them, all of that should remain such that to manage them in the time comes. If I go to China, all the roads in Nigeria, for example, all of them in the sector. Only the roads. The importance on the road, they want to put in a tool and run on a very spot road. And the federal government will not have the budget to fix the road. And the idle funds all of them. I'm not going to fix the world. People listening to this. But today, Nigeria does not have social capital to unlock nations in agriculture. Let's give food security and let's give them the sector. Every policy can be broken. We're going to talk about power, which we are going to talk about. In the United States of America, conventional license is issued by the mayor. Not by the government. This is local convention. No, because there's such as economy, so as economy issue. So where we need to go. And it's hard for this to happen. If we would, by this advocacy, as I say it, come company and the government first let's go what is called the generalization. Strength and we'll go from there. Thank you for this question.
Thank you very much, Ms. Iwata. I think that you received my admonition earlier on that we should note and so that we can come back to comments. I don't want to interrupt the flow. There's a lot that is being said, and there's some useful threads that we can explore. But I don't want us to forget that this is what we said, and this is what Benga said, etc. Thank you very much, Prince. So I'm going to go on because we also have time constraints to Dr. Oyalo to give her own remarks. Let's give her some encouragement, ladies and gentlemen.
So good morning, everybody. So my medical doctor, the first kind of initiative, is coming from all angles, and that even the clergy are going to do stuff like this because this is like the church of thought that I know is coming from the pulpits. So there's something is going to happen. I'm going to talk, despite for that medical doctor, if I go into the health sector, I won't leave what to do, so I'll just leave it for the other discussions. I'll start from a personal point of view. And I don't know how many of us have our children asked us, what are you still doing in this country? You know, every day, because I'm a doctor, my children are saying, one is that I want us to look at it personally. I've listened to the goals and objectives, but I want us to also try to get it to the individual, because it's the individual that makes up the corporate sector, government, whichever cluster, it's the individuals that make it. Now, I use my own personal story to elicit some. I grew up in Kwara State, which is a mix of Christians and Muslims, even though a lot of people believe that a lot of Muslims in Kwara in the world, but really it's like 50-50. And I grew up, my dad married my mom as a Christian, and my dad remained a Muslim. And we were like that for their first 20 years of marriage. We followed my mom to church. It was never a problem in the house. There was never a day when the issue of come to the mosque with me or the children. It was never an issue. And I remember that 3 others of my dad's friends had that kind of arrangement. So I'm thinking, what has changed? Because you want to even marry, your child wants to marry another place, is a problem. You even told them from when they're young, that's not possible. So I've done a mix of my cousins. I have about 80 Muslim cousins and 50 Christian cousins. because my dad is the only one that married one wife. All the rest are 3 or 4. And we're all still friends. And really, we don't even till now. And that's why I'm saying that we need to look at the individual. We need to look at our values. We need to look at even what the political class is bringing down into the corporate sector. You know, when things are going around and you're seeing the quality of the things we're having, we're them. You're seeing the kind of rhetorics. You're seeing kind of things I'm saying was. So I'm of the opinion that yes, we're going it's part of the clusters and all of that, but we also need to look at our followership, which is ourselves. Followership. What are our values? You see people say, I can never employ a neighbor. Some will say, I can never take a neighbor as my tenant. These are real things, real evils. That if we continue as that as individuals, it must rebuild Nigeria. So these stereotypes are from ourselves. So we're having to build Nigeria, we're all in the same way. We're Christians there, there are Muslims there, we're all from different. But where is it from it? So more of this kind of initiatives that will bring individuals and we begin to become evangelists of the individual itself. We're living hatred and thinking about tolerance in the spaces that we are. I work in the SME sector, so I'm so excited when we were saying a lot of things in the SME sector. Because I'm saying, can I just go to, and I run an organization called Market Doctor. So what we do is that we take clinic into the markets. So I'm running it in Lagos, I'm running it in a lot of other places. But whenever I'm in a number, I won't be head in the market. No, I have to look for a cheap musical. They want it because they say, let me they do it. If I go to them, can I be the one working there? No. I have to look for someone else. Yes. If we're going to build Nigeria, we need to start thinking as individuals. So as we are set as individuals, we need to begin to think, what are the stereotypes that I have? How tolerant am I? Because that is what actually translates to organizations. That is what translates to government. That is what translates to any cluster that we decide to choose. So I'll leave it here. Maybe right next comes to me, then I'll go into the healthcare sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's another perspective that we've heard that introduces a different element completely to the discourse, and we will get to it. I'm actually a little bit excited to call on Khadija Lamidi to make some of her own remarks. Please, encouragement as usual. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so my name is Khadija Okunu Lamidi. It's really been great to be invited here. I am going to continue contributing as best as I can to any discourse that has to do with Nigeria and how. So I really like the diversity that you brought into conversation, Ms. Yetuni. And I'm just going to highlight as a woman that these are the things we look at when it comes to growth. Women generally look at nobody left behind. So that's the concept when you think about growth. But here I am. I'm going to contribute my perspective as a regular Nigerian. I'm going about my business, going about my daily life, my family life. That's how I'm going to come about this. So it's, for me, I think the deficit we have in Nigeria is a deficit of trust. We do not trust our government officials. We do not trust ourselves. We do not trust our neighbor, and we do not trust anything that comes around us. And if we're not able to build that trust, it's going to be difficult to build anything else. It's when people ask me, why did you get into government? What is it that I'm trying to build? That I'm trying to build that trust in governance. Many people are in there for their own pockets. They're in there for their own selves, and they don't realize, like the gentleman said, that you're affecting the third, fourth person if you're only benefiting for yourself. So standards, I would be here. I would like to discuss as we go further the standards that are acceptable, how we're going to contribute and put ourselves in politics. Because I just look at it, we're in a vicious cycle. In the next few decades, if we're continuing on this vicious cycle, there's going to be another uprising, another NSAS. And then I think at that time, who's going to give the order to do that kind of thing? Is it going to be us? Are we going to be able to do those kind of things again? And, so where do we really stand when it comes to these issues? So I'm here, I'm interested in this dialogue, and thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Khadija. My handlers are telling me that we have Pat Utomi, who's online to also please give us some.
Please unmute.
Thank you. Separate remarks. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, and thank you all to the Rebuild Nigeria initiative. When I was invited, I thought about the name Rebuild Nigeria, and I was like, maybe we need to build Nigeria as opposed to rebuilding Nigeria. I don't think enough efforts has been put into building Nigeria from the get-go. Nigeria, as I think it was Itua that said it in his opening remarks, Nigeria was built by colonial powers who had ulterior motives. And so we are left now with the opportunity to build Nigeria as the folks who have inherited that structure. And I guess that's probably why we're talking about the structure and the integration and so on and so forth. So I think Nigerians need to take a step back and look at it again. In terms of my validity to speak on this topic, I run the African Enterprise Institute. We're based in Lagos and in DC, Washington, DC, and we support the development of enterprises across the African continent. Now, what I think in terms of the topic we're talking about, first of all, just to address what one of my colleagues here said in terms of, I think it was the Chamber, the British British Nigerian Chamber. You said what we need are the basics, right? And I would tend to disagree. I think we need more than just the basics. I think it is that basic appeal that has distorted the demand that Nigerians have. And that's why we accept everything. We accept all kinds of nonsense, you know, because we are only just giving the basics. And that's the mindset that our leaders have, that all you need to do is give Nigerians the basics, build a few roads, and they'll be fine. You know, so Nigerians have not started to think in terms of being part of the global community. One thing that I must mention here, I did a study, and I used to do the study of African corporations with particular reference to Nigeria. And you'll be shocked to know that out of the 100 companies that the British Nigerian Chamber talked about, and out of the largest companies in the country, none is owned or operated by a Nigerian. Nigerians are completely out of the cycle of leadership in corporate Nigeria. But we don't know. We're going along as if it's business as usual. And I can hear the names. It's in every single industry. You talk about oil and gas, top 10, foreign owned, foreign operated. From Shell to Chevron to Mobil to so on and so forth. Talk about telecommunications, the same thing. Talk about even in the finance industry, it's the same thing. You know, and then you go to the stock exchange itself, you find out that even the Nigerian companies like Nigerian Breweries and so on, they're run by foreigners. They're foreign CEOs. But Odumegwu was the last Nigerian to run the Nigerian Breweries. You know, Nigerians are not asking any questions. It's incredible what we are accepting. Now, if we really want to build Nigeria, we have to start taking ourselves seriously. Currently, we don't. We don't take ourselves seriously. And so when you want to take yourself seriously, it means you have to change your mindset. The mindset of the leaders and the mindset of the followers. Because if you want the world to take you seriously, then you must take yourself seriously. And I'll give you some examples again. What is the number one product that is used in Nigeria? My colleague from Eco Distribution, Electricity, talked about power, right? So the number one product in Nigeria, I would say, arguably, without actually conducting a study, but one of the largest products we buy in Nigeria on a daily basis is power generators, right? Because power is not available, so everybody is using power generators. In fact, there's a study that says Nigeria produces about 25,000 megawatts on privately owned power generators. However, Nigeria has not designed or built one power generator. Even the small states you are facing, everything is imported. So where are our engineers? I had an opportunity to speak to some engineers in the university system a while ago. I said, some power. What about water pumps? Do they have Nigerian-made water pumping? We haven't even designed a water pump. We have hundreds of thousands of engineers graduating every year. You can see that we're not taking ourselves seriously. And I can give you several examples, but I don't want to go into too much details. So, as far as the leadership is concerned, you talked about leadership. Again, the Nigerian leadership, the barrier to entry is too low. I have spoken about this in several occasions. You cannot be employed in the federal government department without a university degree. But you can be president of Nigeria with a secondary school certificate. What kind of madness is that? So the barrier is too low. It's far too low. And you find out that most of the folks who go into leadership, they don't know anything about development. They don't know what it takes. They can't read a balance sheet. They've had no experience in running anybody. They haven't managed 2 people. And I can give examples without going into too much details. All you need to do is look at your most local governors and look at their resumes. From local government councillor to local government chairman to chief of staff to governor to governor. So they've never run anything. And then they're now making decisions on the future of millions of people. So if the Nigerian people want to rebuild this country or build this country, we must take ourselves seriously. And one of those issues is raise the barrier to entry for leaders and give them specific standards that a leader must meet before he can come out and claim he wants to be your leader. Why do we accept this nonsense? And in concluding my remarks, we need to also look effectively what my colleague here said about the individual. As far as one of the things that we do effectively and we do too much is that we are the ones that are creating the divisions for ourselves. So we put too much emphasis on your state of origin as opposed to your state of residence. Many of the Nigerian elites travel abroad. You have Nigerians that are mayors in the UK. You have Nigerians that are mayors in Canada. Nigerians just became mayors in the US. Some of them are congressmen. Some of them are local state senators. If you come to Nigeria, you cannot be Igbo and run election in Lagos. You cannot be Yoruba and run election in Kaduna. But the same Nigerians go abroad and take advantage of these inclusive laws. And then we come here and we frustrate ourselves. So clearly we're not serious. That's the truth. So when we get serious, we will know. We need to take ourselves more seriously. We know what it takes to build a nation that will compete with the rest of the world. We are simply not doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to
Sorry, am I able to go on now?
Dr. John George online. If we can have him available. Me.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
We can hear you online.
I can hear you.
Okay. A very good day to everybody. All protocols observed. I would like to be minimalistic with time. Thank you to those who have spoken before me. I just want to touch.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll follow them. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to touch briefly. There's a voice interference there. Okay. I just want to follow up briefly on the fourth topic of the day, which touches on good governance. Now, if we assume that good governance is a measure of how public institutions conduct public affairs and manage public resources, of course, guaranteeing fairness in the society with due respect to rule of law. If that's our assumption, then one would ask, what's the relationship between good governance, accountability, and development in the society? Because I believe these have a very clear line linking them. Good governance, in my opinion, would always bring about corporate trust. That's from the corporate society, from the corporate world. It will bring also public trust. That trust enables attraction of business, and in the first place, it creates an attractive business environment. And when that business environment is created, you have a fertile soil to attract investment. Investments improve the standard of living of any particular society. And from there, like one of the speakers touched the issue of immigration, which is becoming a problem. You don't have people immigrating in droves in a place where there's opportunity. So my thought is that there is a very clear track that leads from bad governance to the kind of immigration problems we have now and the conditions of living that is discouraging people from staying in Nigeria. I'm from a business world, and I look at things most of the time from that prism. Business and government agencies are, as I call them, mandatory partners. Now, the only problem is that the businesses are very highly regulated. They have numerous agencies regulating them. But let's ask ourselves, who is regulating the government agencies? They're either not regulated at all, or they're very poorly regulated. So that gives room for the recklessness from those government agencies, and these, in turn, discourage or damage or undermine businesses. So I know that a study was done not long ago, and that showed that bad governance from government agencies adds about 45% to the cost of living for citizens in Nigeria. We have to look deep into this. It is a cancer that we need to cure in the country. And I hope to expatiate more on this as we discuss. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Online. So if we can link up with Atutomi, please. Whilst we're trying to do that, let me ask whether I can carry on. Okay. Any comments in the first instance from the floor? What we will do, thank you, madam. What we'll do is just, as I say, let's keep it brief. No need to go through protocol and all this sort of stuff. Just say who you are, say which organization as appropriate, etc., and make your comment or question. Can somebody pass a microphone so that we can hear? Thank you very much. Yes, I don't know if you mind standing so that we can see you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Fumi Adesanya, Murtala Mohammed Foundation. We are here because we all have interest in Nigeria. And this initiative is Rebuild Nigeria initiative. But one area that is very pertinent that we don't seem to be talking about is the security. There's so much insecurity in the land. And if you do a survey, you find out that the reason why so many people are japping, like they say, is because they don't feel safe any longer. You have a situation where I work with some set of girls, let's say they bring back our girls, and you find out that even the ones that are released, unfortunately, want to go back. They want to go back, and the reason being that when they come, government doesn't have any plan for them. The communities are more or less disowning them at the moment, so they don't have a place to stay. And, you know, this is something that we've been talking about for years. There's so many campaign on it, so many advocacy. But yet, in the last 2 months thereabouts, maybe about 8 came out. There's no news about them. Nobody's saying anything. And he interviewed them, and, you know, you can't go into details, but you find out that they even find it a bit more comfortable, you know, where they are coming from because of lack of planning. Lack of planning. These are girls that have been, I'm just using this as an example. These are children that have been in captivity for almost 3 years. If they were to be outside of the country, by the time they are coming out, they already are, there's rehabilitation, there has to be counseling, there has to be mental evaluation, you know, the whole lot's lined up. You now find out that the level of mediocrity in Nigeria as we speak is ridiculous, from government, from even individuals. And the question today is not to talk about the problems and all of that, it's more of the solution. So we begin to ask, where does the corporate organization come in this area? There's so many ways we can come in. There's so many ways, you know, you can, we all have, we've talked insecurity, we've talked about the power sector, all the collapses. But I think what we should be dealing with here is exactly what, we may not be able to provide the exact solution, but exactly what can we do? The example I gave, how does the corporate organizations come in? Do these girls want to go back to school? Do they want to learn a trade? Is there some later, but it has to be specific. And we have to deal with issues like that and the other sectors too that we have. But what we have right now in Nigeria is sad, is the level of mediocrity from the top to the bottom. And you find it that is beginning to affect our youths. Also, you employ youths now, and you employ graduates, and it's as if you are dealing with, sorry to say, it's as if you're dealing with, some secondary schools. So I want us to also deliberate on the solutions as we speak. Thank you.
Very fair point. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause. So okay, so we're back to Patutomi. Right, can we try Patutomi?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a true privilege for me to be able to join you this morning. And I hope that you are hearing me clearly. I want to begin by saying that the Rebuild Nigeria initiative and the emphasis of today's meeting deserve a commendation, because really, truly, in many ways, is at the heart of where our country is. I would like to begin with a simple story I've told many times about how we began to reform the Nigerian economy and how business and government began to get together to talk some more. In 1985, the Aga Khan Foundation sponsored a conference in Nairobi. It was on a tripartite approach to development. That conference in 1985 had participants from the Nigerian private sector, Nigerian public sector, Nigerian civil society, or social enterprise sector. When that conference ended, there was a commitment to these three sectors working together, because unless you can achieve peace and stability, business cannot thrive, jobs will not be created, progress will not take place, and governing will not take place in a condition that can lead to improved well-being for all. That conference resulted in the founding of the Enabling Environment Forum that had tripartite leaders, equal leaders. The private sector leader to that conference, Chief Ernest Shunekon, the public sector leader to that conference, Alhaji Abubakar Alhaji, who was Federal Permanent Secretary in Finance, and the NGO sector leader, Dr. Jack. That Enabling Environment Forum actually translated into the Nigerian Economic Summit Group when Chief Shunekon became head of government, and the first Nigerian Economic Summit was called. The problem why NESG has not gotten us the momentum that we should is that we allowed government to take over as so dominant a partner. It is just a co-equal partner in terms of advance of the well-being of all. Unfortunately, we didn't manage that process well. Now, when in 1993, before this happened, we had a unique opportunity to show that the private sector matters. Unfortunately for us, we failed. In 1993, I was sitting at a meeting of NECA. These were the leading chief executives in the country. And I said to that meeting, if we keep quiet, that was after the annulment of the June 12th elections. If we keep quiet and don't say to government in some very strong language that we don't care who is head of state, but that we want a process that is clear, transparent, and that the will of the people is upheld. We in this room, that's the chief executives of the biggest companies in Nigeria, will see our businesses fail. We will be out of work ourselves. And of course, people looked at me and thought, this guy, what's he talking about? The one person that I never forget who stood up and supported my position was the managing director of Cadbury Nigeria PLC at the time, Dr. Christopher Kolade. And the things I predicted would happen if we did not speak up strongly have since happened. Now, progress is going to be very hard if we do not recognize that the environment of business needs a certain conducive context, and that progress for the people requires that. I, as a leading CEO of a multinational company, I was on the streets marching in 1994-95. I survived assassination attempts because I thought it was for the common good, because I could stay in my comfort zone and enjoy the moment, but I know that ultimately the environment will be ineffective for the good of everyone. Through the years, as an academic watching these things, I have watched Ghana be taken more seriously. The Japanese are going to invest, they say Ghana, and all of those, just simply because they saw that governments could be replaced without much rancor in Ghana and stuff like that. I think that peace and stability are important for business, are important for progress, and that the private sector and the NGO sectors that can create even better conditions in some particular areas are critical for achieving this. And because of this, a passive role, a pretense that this is politics, is not good enough for the private sector. The private sector in the United States does not act passively. You see the biggest business leaders in America, when they state their positions on the nature of the Commonwealth and where we are. We must stop ourselves from this mock or this pretentious view that, oh, we're business, we don't have any views. We need an environment that sustains the good of all in politics and in the way public choice is made. And my message to you here is that until we can have the commitment level to make that happen, we're not doing enough for our democracy. I've got plenty more to say, but I thought I should say this as introductory comments. I'm actually participating in an event in Abuja around this same subject. And I'm pleased to come back and make a comment later on in the course of the program, if that helps. So thank you so very much for letting me in.
Thank you very much, sir. I hope you can hear the applause. Yes, so very interesting comments there and some of the historical perspective provided by Professor at Utomi. Next on the list is Mr. Oari Ojekiri. Ojekiri. Yes, sorry, I understand you have some comments to make. Can we pass a microphone over? And also, Mr. Michael Williams. Yes, just a second. I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. Sorry, apologies.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I work in corporate Nigeria, and I think the one area I can share my thoughts and perspectives is in this whole concept of leadership. One of the things you hear Nigerians, say, and I think we're more or less all aligned, on, this as probably the single biggest problem in this country is something called, the absence, of leadership. I mean, everybody seems to blame the leader. Unfortunately, I think we make the mistake by defining leader as one man. So everybody looks to the president. Governors barely get any mention. The members of the legislature barely get any mention. The local government chairman, for instance, barely gets any mention. So everybody thinks if we fix the president, all of a sudden, everything will get are fixed. I'd just like to contrast what I see in the public sector, with what I see in the private sector. Now, I use two organizations. I work, for a long time in Coca-Cola and also in Airtel. The rigor of planning your business is tough. In Coke, it's like a 3-4 month, cycle. The business plan is done in Nigeria. It goes to Nairobi, where we have the division office. It goes to Tokyo, where we have the group office before it gets to, Atlanta. It is insight, driven. It's no guesswork, for instance, and there's a very clear, path. By the time we're done, it's very clear what we are going to be doing and also why we're going to be doing it. And there are checkpoints, to check us every quarter to see how, we are tracking. When I look at, our country, Nigeria, I look at the budget process, for instance, and I look at how we go about, it's like we do that document and just scratch it and people just do what they like. There are no checkpoints to, and if you're not going to do that, nothing is going, to work. The other thing I also found interesting, especially when I rejoined Coca-Cola and the internet had become more pervasive and cool, is every year, and at periodic intervals, I have to do a test on code of business conduct. And you have to pass the test. At some time I got a bit irritated because you do the test maybe twice in a year, for instance. I said, well, I did last year, I know the answers. So you click on the text and you go to the answer. I said, no, go and read it. Because it's timed. You cannot after clicking, in 2 minutes, go and do, no. You have to read it, And what I found interesting is it's impossible, for you to say you don't know what wrong is. Working for a Coca-Cola or an Airtel, for instance. All the scenarios are given, all of these things, are played out. And sometimes I ask myself, if this happened, in, say, the public service, or if all organizations do the same thing, for instance, maybe, in those organizations, if you're caught doing wrong, it's spelled out in your test, and the same consequences, will apply. I think for me, that's where I see, a lot, of the misses. I'll just close by one thing, and this is my view, and I share this, as commonly, opportunity I have. One of the things that I also, see that's wrong, with this country, right? It's the fact that we have elected not to hold our leaders, accountable. And my argument, has always been this, right? If every Nigerian who owes tax pays his taxes the same way which I'm forced to pay a significant amount of money every month, to the government as taxes, for instance, we will not accept this nonsense. I mean, we're in a country, where our GDP is 500 billion, for instance, dollars, and we can barely raise any money, in tax revenues. Ghana raises about $250, per person, who raise less than 50. So there's something fundamentally wrong where we have that reality, where we don't hold anybody accountable. People are bad leaders, and all of a sudden it's acceptable. And I think for me, those are the things, the soul searching we need to try and do, to ask ourselves, hey, we're all a part of this, for instance, and unless we begin to mirror what the best corporates do in every sphere, both in SME as well as in government, for instance, we'll continue to struggle.
Encouragement. Mr. Michael Williams has been calling for the microphone for a while, I'm sorry it's taking such a while. Welcome, please. Thank you.
Okay, I think this is on. Good morning, everybody. So I'm general manager at Ebony Life Place. Some of you have probably visited at some point, but so I'm very much a private sector person, but I started life in Nigeria 12 years ago as the head of the Tourism Bureau in Cross River. So I worked for government as a consultant. And I guess what I'm bringing here is an outside perspective to this. So arriving here 12 years ago, the giant of Africa and all the potential, huge oil revenues and all the rest of it. But what I realized, and it's something that a number of people have hinted at, but not really said outrightly, is that Nigerians are not really brave. And in the private sector, there's absolutely no bravery. Everybody hides in their compounds, hides in their corporate offices, hides in their beautiful cars, and they hide. And so the politicians do whatever, however, whenever. And everyone says, okay, but the road is bad. Let me buy a bigger SUV to navigate the potholes. There's no power. Let me get a bigger generator and make sure in fact, let me get two so they can run concurrently, and make sure I hire two people on shifts so that it always, and I make sure there's an automatic. So let's just counter everything. I'll pump my own water, I'll generate my own electricity, and I will just do everything I can to just get around what the government is doing. And I kept asking my Nigerian friends, why? And what I realized after a while is that Nigeria never addresses anything in its history, anything traumatic that has happened. And I don't know how many people here have been to Rwanda, but I just went a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed at a country that's been through this massive trauma. And in just 20-something years, they've transformed their society simply because they confronted everything that happened to them. So you're talking about a country of, I think, maybe 20 million people. 1 million people were killed. Almost everybody who remains, and I've spoken to so many people, there is nobody there that didn't probably see someone slaughtered in front of them. Every person in their 30s, 40s and upwards has a parent or two or siblings that they watch hacked to death in front of them. How do you recover from that? So, but they've recovered because they confronted it. I went to the Genocide Museum and saw everything, the mass graves and the whole kind of dialogue that they take you through on the journey. And when I got out, I said to my taxi driver, it's amazing what you guys have done with this National Museum. And he just stopped me and he said, there's a museum like this in every city and in every town and in every village, because we do not want to forget what happened. We have to confront and we have to heal and repair. So what did you guys do after the Biafra War? different massacres, end SARS, and we'll just forget it happened. Let's just move ahead, right? Let's just pretend it didn't happen. You don't confront it. And so nobody speaks out, nobody says anything, because there's this fear, I suppose, going back to military rule, where if you say anything, you'll be arrested. If you say anything, this will happen to you. And so I find that, and I write a blog called From Kingston to Calabar. I'm from Jamaica, so Kingston to Calabar. And I write in it a lot. And when I talk about this thing, I always say the only way you can fix your politics, you cannot fix your politicians. You know, that's gone. But what you can do as the private sector is you can step up and start running for office. You can encourage people to run for office. Another sector that's not brave at all, and I was so glad to see a minister here at the forefront. You know, our church, you know, same thing, look the other way and take the collection, take the tithes, keep it moving. But how did African Americans get their political power? Through the church, because you have mass leadership and a political movement that can come from that. So I would say for us as the private sector, we need to just man up. We need to speak up collectively as chambers of commerce and different, but also as leaders of companies. You're big enough, you're rich enough, you can speak up. No one's going to kidnap you in the middle of the night because you spoke up. Time to speak up, time to run for office. And I think we can change things if we no longer leave it to the politicians.
If you just pass it in front of you, we'll take one more comment before. I have some questions for some of the panelists, but we'll take this last comment.
Okay. I listened to the pastor speaking. The man who just spoke that seated behind me. When I was handling the brand of Cross River State, I worked with him. He was the MD of tourism, Cross River, and I was brand consultant for Cross River State. So when he speaks, it's thorough. So, but I differ in some of the, I don't want to go headlong. I agree with him by one agree. Let me take it from the power sector. One, I strongly believe that our biggest issue is the human capacity. At 49, I went to School of Politics Governance. I wear my label pin proudly. She's in cohort 2. I'm in cohort 1. And I graduated. It was intense. We had to study African economy. The challenge with African politicians is very simple. We assume we know everything. Who remembers one day? Okay, let me break it down. Will write the script. After writing the script, he will hold the camera. He will position it. He will go and act. After he acts, he will go back again. Now, that is the situation we have in Africa because the politicians feel they know it all. Meanwhile, they don't know nothing. Ask a normal person about Nigerian economy. What's the GDP? He will not tell you. I know you're a J3. I read you. A lot of us don't even read. I was talking to my team one day. I said, the biggest challenge we have in Africa is that we are illiterate. All we do every day is survive. Two of us. You want to get the money, you want to get to the bus, get to the car, go to work. We're just living the life to die. To survive and die. Now, how can any human being make the impossible when she's living on subsistence? We need to elevate the lifestyle of our people, the quality of living of our people. And he said to me on Rwanda, my son has been schooled in Rwanda, African Lecture University for the past 4 years. He's calling home. So listen, meanwhile, my daughter has been in school, University of Lagos, 6 years. He's still waiting to graduate. He's been there for 4 years. He has run 3 businesses. He's coming home December. He's a graduate. You see, because they understood the philosophy of how. And I will go back to what he said. I think 2 weeks ago, I went to Native here. I said, we need to move. And I told him I don't want to talk about this again because I don't get arrested. And in that hall, we had like half of the hall in generals, right? And it said something. We need to move away from governance and reconciliation. And it's very simple. Who has killed the killings in Asaba? You said you took my lips. Who has killed the killings in Biafra? You want to move on. We are just glossing over issues that will never, ever gloss over. And we need to build it up into a national discussion. I'm 52 next year. But I'm still NEPA and EPDC, ITDC, and all of them come and go. And guess what? It's a just like you see here, you see, we laugh. You see, you have your problem. I'll fix it by saying I'll not pay my bill. You can insist. So let me go back to the politics of the system. The human element that becomes a governor or whatever, it's a human being. And a government still 3 billion. Wait, please. They said Abacha is the biggest ATM. How did it happen? It's called fiscal confederacy. Fiscal federalism, sorry. We need to go back. How can one state, a governor can be able to dig deep and take all the money? Because we have no leadership structure. The human element is frail, and then the system itself is weak. When I went to school of politics, we're taught you can't see there are things before you go for elective government office. You must go and define yourself first, and you come back to this school. Task force to endorse you. I wear my lapel with all pride. You cannot go for elective governance if you do not go to that screening. Nigeria has not done, we don't have it yet. So it starts with the process. Let's look at your question. The presidency can decide not to sign a bill, right? So he can siphon what? Spend it. But he has access to money. Okay. In fact, someone, I think you spoke about how the mayor in America, right? I don't know who spoke about it. I stopped at this level. I don't know who it was. So in America, a mayor is in charge of power and all that. Yes. Guess what? Nigeria. Everything is controlled by central. So we need to decentralize power. And it starts with going back. They've done so many of those what they've got, the conferences. At the end of the day, they will not implement. Because there's, what do you call this, emotional conference. Also, by the end of the day, who implements it? It takes one man. Kagame decided he wants to fix his country. It's not about the documents. We can write all we want to write. It takes the will from one person that has a vision to execute, right? They mentioned how they went to reconcile. Before they reconciled, they did something. They found out that there were a lot of rubbish going on in Rwanda. They found out that all their brothers were Poros. They gave all their brothers 2 weeks to surrender their weapons to leave the country. Those ones did not answer. Guess what happened? They caught all of them, they did public execution. Now, if you drove into Rwanda, you know there's only one way in and one way out. You've got a metal detector thing. Now, guess what? You cannot steal in Rwanda. If you have your laptop or your phone in a car, the car will beg you. Please take you to work. I don't want to die. It starts with leadership. It's not about the system alone. Yes. So it starts with the leadership and then the individual. And then let's go back to the drawing board and look at, let's heal first. We need to heal the people. And then put in place a conversation about healing. But I hope it's happening in my lifetime. After we heal, we now get a leader that will not be based on elections, a leader that is ready to get the job. That's my piece.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so what, because time is fast and we were supposed to be running this up about 10 minutes ago. Okay, I will take comments from the floor. This lady here, you'll just introduce yourself, your name just for the record, and then quickly make your comment or question. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chinasa Amechi. I'm a founder of Mind to Mind Initiative. a youth-centered organization. To my contribution towards Rebuild Nigeria, I was privileged to go to the north 2 years ago, from Abuja to other northern states. And what I found out, was really deep. Being in Lagos, born in Lagos, raised in Lagos, you are limited to information and systems. And I was also privileged to work at National Assembly as well. So what I found out is a lot of speakings, a lot of deliberations, the Northerners, ethnicity has eaten deep in Nigeria. Ethnicity has eaten deep, and that has to be addressed if we must rebuild Nigeria. You will see an average young Northerners that graduate from Oxford or Harvard. The next thing the father is telling him or her is to go and serve in National Assembly. And as he or she is coming there, they already have a portfolio for him or her. And I asked myself, what are the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Deltas, the Edos are doing? And today, I'm an advocate for if you must do or belong to a class. And I believe, maybe I wasn't born then, I believe some powers that be, precisely, I don't want to mention them, but they set that system running. And for us, for other tribes to meet the level, the level the Northerners have taken in this country, it will take us years. So we have to be intentional, because tribalism, like this lady said, is even the major issue. I have a guy that I worked with, Jabil. He knows him. This guy graduated as a computer science student. This guy doesn't even know how to write a memo or even press computer. But this guy has been positioned at a high level in National Assembly. He even gave himself right honorable. That's how he's been addressed. And you need to see where he's talking. And as he's going, they have lists. So I'm speaking to other young people here below 40. It is high time we are intentional about the notion of rebuilding Nigeria. We have to get involved. Enough of being only in the corporate world. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I take that comment, I think it is appropriate to say that what we're trying to do here, if we call ourselves Rebuild Nigeria Initiative, is not to identify or say that some people have done something and there's no we here in this. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn for the executive of the RBI, but the idea is not to categorize or identify and vilify anybody. This is why we say we want peace, stability, reconciliation, etc. So that what we are trying to do is to promote that, rather than to say that there's an agenda that we're trying to present for ourselves here. Let me have a comment from there. I wanted to ask one or two questions of the panelists before, but if you have questions rather than your own experience, we all know what has happened. If you have some questions that we want to give the panelists, please, I prefer that, but make your comment, please.
Good morning. My name is Laipe Oborige. I am the founder of Intercontinental Pent and the Young CEO Initiative. So I'll be speaking from the entrepreneurs aspect. Being the founder of the Young CEO Initiative, a platform where we have over 35,000 young entrepreneurs and 12 years old, we have discovered that a lot of young entrepreneurs have closed up their businesses and moved out of Nigeria. A lot of businesses have been suffering, and maybe due to the economic hardship, insecurity, and others. So the reason I'm here today is to render our support and also express that we are very much interested in the dialogue to rebuild this nation. Because the truth is, we travel a lot and we also discover that it's not easy staying abroad. That's just the truth. trying to live in the US where you have to work and pay different bills. Your home is still your home. It's either we build it or we will not build it. But the truth is, America or Europe can never be our home. This is our home. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so let me come back to our discussions. We have moved far away from you, and we want to end with you. There are various threads that I took note of as each one was making a presentation. Ms. Benga spoke about social facility and selfishness, I think, maybe self-centeredness of Nigerians, not thinking about that everything affects us, you know. It may be that we are inclined not to step out. I think, you know, in my introductory remarks, you know, I said something about that if you don't step out, nothing is going to happen. Then Mr. Ray spoke about painstaking planning, a listening ear, feedback and redirection, I think, safety, people's investments, and policy somersault. Now, these are things that in the business world, the question is, let's take policy somersault. How do you think you can solve that? Just yesterday, I went to have a meeting at Pastor Itua's office with him. And I saw a magazine and an interview. I think it was former MD of Nigerian Breweries, Emmanuel Jekiri or something. I can't remember the name, but Ohewere. So Felix, yes. And he said that there was a time Nigeria said no more importation of malt barley. Bam, one day, no consultation with industry beforehand. And then they went, changed their technology. I think there are some technology requirements for processing maybe corn or maize or sorghum to make beer to taste the same way. And then maybe 5 years later, they changed again. After there has been massive investments, after this is his interview, that small businesses who are have gone out of business. So the point is this: a lot of us have knowledge of and can identify the issues. The question is, what is the solution? How do we solve this policy deficiency? I don't know if you have something to say about that.
Yes, I'll make an attempt because when you are talking about policy somersault, it's second nature to Nigeria. Sadly, it's as consistent as that. Any rule that is made today, it's bound to be altered without recourse to its effectiveness. And so the only way, in my opinion, is that we have to go back to having a national plan. Because what we do now is that we allow the political parties to voice their manifesto, which is seldom implemented on us. And so Party A comes into office. This is what they want to do. And 4 years down the road, if they don't retain power, another party comes in. And then they do a somersault in order to appease their base, which they now see as those who voted for them, other than the entirety of the nation. So we need to go back to national planning. Back in those days, we used to have national rolling plans, and the military tried as much to implement. But today, they are observed in the breach. We need to have a plan for Nigeria, not a plan for the party, so that whatever party is in office, if we're going to have a speed rail network from Lagos to Abuja, it does not matter what party is in office. That is a national priority. It has to be implemented, and you must subscribe to it if you are the elected representatives of the people. And instead of running your own agenda, it happened to the power sector of this country. Without dropping a lot of names, we know we would have had better power supply today, but for such somersaults. Thank you.
Can I ask just a second, sir? Khadija, I don't know if you want to make a comment on that, on this policy somersaulting. Is it that there's just too many different tools? And how does corporate Nigeria solve that?
First thing I believe is, like was mentioned, it's important to get into office, important to run for. Having, what I call it, the ambition of the country, the ambition of the people of the country, what drives the country. The corporate world is comfortable, but there's so many skills and intelligentsia that is required in governance. And it's a sacrifice because I ran for office, and there are many things that came with that. So the media entrepreneur, my business has been maligned, is one call it that, because of attempting to run for office. But then it also gives you the idea that government patronage affects corporate world a lot. So these policies you're talking about, most policies are made on the backs of a particular company, locally, on the backs of, so that's what, it doesn't happen without, contribution from big corporate giants that drive the policies for themselves and not for the people. So it's important that people that are good at what they do, manage government. And it's just for a short time to offer your services, your public services for greater. You can always go back to your sort of if you're good. So it's important for me running for offices because we have so many tax data. We have boards. Who are those boards? Who are driving corporate governance? Public governance? Who are driving accountability? Who are driving all these aspects that in corporate world we know are important? So what is going to be in the public space? What is going to happen in that space? If it's just like a ship, everybody's building, cutting their own, the ship is going to sink. If you don't come in there and offer your services on the national stage. So I think, now that we are aware, more people who are younger, don't scare. They come after you. You know that government patronage is not sustainable. So at the end of the day, you need to build something that is sustainable, that you generate. But then, public services just.
Thank you very much. I think I have a comment on your brother here.
I'm so sorry. I'm a member of the club and I was just walking, so it tapped me and put me in. I apologize because I have to go. I'm going to say one thing. The Bible says that what can be, like I say, if the foundation be destroyed, what can the institutions do? We spent, Pastor Itra was there, we spent the first 2 days of this week at the National Economic Summit in Abuja. Only came back yesterday. It's all what you're talking about here that they are talking about there. The truth of the matter is that if the operating system is faulty, there's nothing you can build on it. The operating system of Nigeria is faulty. And anything you build on it will crumble. That's all I can say. And until and unless we restructure the quality of this country, we're not going anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So part of that, the point that was made there, just to go back to this four pillars. he mentioned restructuring, and Prince Iweta, when he was here, mentioned something about regionalization. And my good brother here, Charles, also mentioned centralization. So those are things that, I don't know, I want to, doctor's comment on this, because doctor takes it to the individual level. Other people take it that, you know, there's been too much centralization in Nigeria, and we're trying to remove matters from, you know, that global to. So would you agree with that, that that's what we need, this restructuring, that your focus is to solve Nigeria, you need restructuring?
Thank you. I agree with that, that we need to decentralize. And I'll give one of my experiences. I don't know if you've ever done a government contract. If you understand what it is to do a government contract, the way a government contract is designed is that some specific people are the only ones that can do it. And that's why you hear selling. You can sell the contract. Because when you get the papers, you have to visit almost 13 parastate houses to get documents. And on visiting each parastatal, you get in and you say you want to make inquiries, and they tell you to go and meet a tout outside that will do the job for you. So you have to do that in 13 parastatals. But let me tell you something. There are also some people that have made themselves those 13 parastatals. You understand? Which means what they have done is that they have got the service fee. You don't need to go to all those 13 parastatals. I think those are the things we need. And to decentralize, we have the solution. The solution is technology. We need to stop carrying paper file from one table to another. There are a lot of solutions that we provide, but there is resistance to it. So there are a lot of governance structures in the government that technology can actually solve with a click of a button. Now, we used to pay tax. You go to the bank, you fill form, you do this, but now you can do it right on your chair and get it done. That's because there was the will, the political will for someone to do that. So I think we need to apply technology in decentralizing. Then I want to lend my voice to what she said about running for office. People think when they have to run for office, they have to go for governor. They feel that this is where I should be. And they ignore even the little things like local government, things. People just feel that I have to be at the top. And that's why it's so difficult. But I think if the corporate sector, if we can start getting involved at the lower levels, gradually, I think we can raise a team, an army that can eventually evolve change. Thank you.
Thank you. So it seems to me that some of what we're saying here requires, the focus is probably more on restructuring than anything else. If we say that the system is broken, I think maybe the message I'm getting. I think there's a little bit of cultural, social. I don't know, which one do you think? You can express your views. Religion? I'm not sure. I don't think it's religious. Mr. Okoye, what do you think, Doctor? Do you think it's cultural or religious that is affecting the system?
I think it's both. It's both. There's lots of cultural reasons that are holding us back. A religion, not just holding us back, but dividing, and then the ability to actually achieve some of the things that the religion suggested. And the doctor has been suggested. It goes back to the comment that gentleman made. The foundation is weak. We have extremely weak institutions in Nigeria. We haven't focused on building institutions. So that's why a man can be a house controlling, what goes on in 13 different houses. That is because the participants are extremely weak. They have porous systems, they have no checks and balances, and they don't use technology. So all those things are part of the Greek structure, the Greek system that we have. To really solve this problem, to be honest, for lack of more words, we need to just collapse everything and start.
Yeah, so that's where we're coming to. So you're talking about culture. You know, I mentioned culture actually deliberately because of what Gbenga had said at the beginning, which was which I would call culture. This self-centeredness, if I can call it that. I don't know if I'm misrepresenting you. An unwillingness to step forward. Let me just stay in my lane. You know, I mean, we see it every day. In everything, you're driving down this road. If you drive down this road, before you get to the junction, you want to turn left. A guy comes out, there's traffic. He comes out from 500 meters away, goes, and passes you. Now, why is it, do you think? Two things. I don't want to know whether it's cultural or religious. Why do you think that if I come out and I create an obstacle for him, I'm in my lane, the man who is coming across on the other side of the road is going to battle with me. He's not going to do battle because I don't want to let this guy come in front of me. But he's going to do battle with me for frustrating this guy from getting in front of me. Why is it that I am the one, I'm in my lane, he is violating, but I am the one who gets is that cultural? And the violator will fight me. The person who is trying to get somewhere, he will fight me. Whose fault is that? And that perhaps is why we don't take action. This is the point I'm trying to suggest, because we have no defense. Do you agree?
I want to look at it from, I'm saying yes to everything, but I want to look at a point. If you want to contest for an office, you would realize that the people contesting, at least the front runners from the presidency to the local government, they have some sort of conviction, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing, whether they feel it's their turn or they want to serve. They have some sort of conviction. So if you want to take a step forward, have the right conviction. Part of the right conviction is to serve. Now, from what Mr. Delano has said, if you speak up, everybody looks at you that, why are you speaking up? Just circumvent and find your way. I believe that we should preach what the Japanese preach more. So we should go back into history, honor. If you have a conviction, you have honor, and it's preached properly with history, some of these things will fall in place automatically. Now, I want to come back into the power sector and the growth because I don't want to lose my own focus. So I have money, I've built a big house somewhere, and the distribution company says, oh, I can't give you a transformer. And then I say, okay, I've got the money, I'm going to buy a transformer. I'm thinking of myself. So I buy a 500 kVA for a house. It's an overkill, but I'm not thinking of the environment. So I'm driving into my house, 10, 20 houses before mine, another 20 after. They have no power supply, but I'm sitting there comfortable. Meanwhile, you as a person, you're overpaying. The distribution company is losing money. So we also need to understand, by preaching it historically and forward thinking, what is right. Do we know what is right? That's the question. Because a lot of these people think that what they're doing is right. From what you're saying, Mr. Dylan, before you say you drive from the Air Force Base down to the other junction. If you stop that driver, they ask for the driving rules. The person, a learned person or not learned, lettered or not lettered, do not understand what driving is. They understand moving a car, driving, and the implications of driving.
All right. So I'm going to take a point from that. Sorry to stop you, which is, it seems to be education. So are we coming back to education now as one of our functional problems that Nigeria needs to solve? Because you mentioned it a little bit. You talked about engineers that cannot build, what did you say, water pumps and things like that. So is it this lack of education? And I want each one of you to express your views. Is it this lack of education that has that should be the focus? We talked a little bit about restructuring. Should it be education? Is that where the answer is? Yeah.
I think it's mental. I think there's been a gap over the years. The generations that have, the past generations, now in the millennial generation, we haven't really seen a generation that moves, seen a generation that has moved. Most things that have come into their hands over the years have not survived. So there has to be more of, and because of that, they let the young ones to sort of depend on themselves. So you're just building more incompetence. I think it's more of a mentor to show me how it's done in business world. While I was getting into the media space, there were so many people that mentored me. That helped me in that space. Now, regardless, who mentors you, everybody's just there to grab what they want to grab and for their own specific reason. So I think generally in the society, mentorship will help. It bridges the gap pretty fast.
Doctor.
Yeah, I would say I think education is very important, and education goes beyond the course you're studying. You know, when for those of us that in those days, I don't want to say, but in that time, I went to Unity School. So in my class, there was actually someone from every state in Nigeria. So you could understand the different cultures, what people believed in, and all of that. Going on to a federal government university again, within the four walls of the university, wasn't only about the course you were studying. There were a lot of other things that you would get from it. I think now a lot of people are not fully educated. You understand? So they don't have all the rights that you get when you go within the four walls of a school. And I want to relate that even sometimes when people say, oh, do online course, you see that right now the world is again reverting back into both in-person and online, because you can't get everything from just being across the computer. With someone, you can't get everything. So I think that education is key, education is important. And even the corporate sector, let me just add this, the corporate sector is also beginning to imbibe some of these bad ethos. And I'll say that I'm from the SME. And so sometimes when you have to partner with organizations that are big organizations, you can see the condescending way by which they want to do business with you, but it's sort of becoming a slave-master relationship. Oh, you want to get this contract, so you have to do it like you don't have a say. And sometimes you really need to, or when you read the contract, there are some things even in the contract that if you don't read it, you find that they want you to do so much for so little just because they feel, oh, we are the big five, we are the big. So it's also even creeping into the corporate organization. And that's why we're finding a lot of mental instability, toxicity. I don't want, you can talk.
Let me just pause a second because I understand Professor Patutomi wants to make some comments before he leaves us. So are we ready for Professor?
Yes, I'm pleased to come in. Right. I just wanted to reflect some on the subject of elite consensus, which has come up in several of the contributions. It was to be part of the highlight of my intervention. One of the biggest challenges with the growth of the Nigerian economy has been the inability of potential or prospective investors to anticipate what will happen. I mean, I've heard the word policy inconsistency already mentioned here several times. I can give you a plethora of occasions of that. I experienced it as a manager in industry. I wrote several case studies on such as an academic. I give you 2 or 3 very quick examples. Back in the 1990s, the Nigerian government kept moving the goalposts on backward integration when we were pursuing import substitution industrialization as strategy. At a point in time with the brewing industry, for example, I said, we were spending too much of our foreign exchange on importation of malted barley. So we're going to use local materials, put pressure on the brewing business. Mr. Felix Ohiwere tells an incredible story of how he put pressure on the Heineken people to help them work to get local material that could make beer without changing the taste and all of that. After the huge effort, the investments, one day the government woke up and changed the policy. And everybody went back to importing malted barley. In fact, I know there's a case of a company in Ikeja that acquired some machinery that Guinness had bought to use to do that. But when the policy was changed, Guinness auctioned off the machinery and went back to importing malted barley. In the flour milling business, is even more dramatic. The president at the time, Ibrahim Babangida, was going to commission a flour mill in Ewu, the Bendel Feed and Flour Mill in Ewu. And the speech he was giving to read, he used his own pencil to add, from the 1st of January 1987, if you do not have local wheat, sorry, all flour millers must use local wheat by 1st of January 1987. He was technically pronouncing the death sentence of the factory he was going to commission. And the former managing director of Flour Mills of Nigeria, Babatunde Amosu, when I invited him to a class I was teaching to illustrate that case, when we finished, he said, well, it's all right that you talk about vertical integration and the effect it had on Flour Mills of Nigeria and stuff like that. But there's something you people did not mention in this case, which was that a group of friends of a powerful general wanted a waiver to bring in some flour when flour was banned, but wheat could be imported to be milled locally to encourage local growth of local industry. Said, but as it turned out, the general who promised his friends to get them a waiver, when the word got out, the flour milling industry protested to the president at the time, and the president, then Muhammadu Buhari as head of state, warned the ministry not to give waiver to anybody. But as it turned out, eventually, a coup d'etat took place, took him out, and the man who was the one whose friends had been promised the waiver became the new head of state. And that pencil inclusion of a ban on imported wheat was part of his revenge on the flour milling industry. Whatever sides of these stories you accept, believe, or do not believe, the point remains that policy inconsistency has been the bane of investment in many sectors of our economy, including manufacturing. And that what has affected the choices we've made have been actually predatory behavior of public officials. Now, but what political parties are for is to build certain kinds of consensus, both on values and on general track of policy. And so if a policy track produces an outcome that the whole party has consistency on, and a second party has a different outcome or a similar outcome in terms of what they believe in, then it is easier to argue those positions and keep government acting in a certain general direction, no matter who is in power. Elite consensus is so important for progress. What has made Malaysia what Malaysia is that Mahathir Mohamad at some point in time in that country's history, literally locked up the elite in a room, literally, not, and said, look, if you guys don't come up with a certain view of a sense of what we should be doing together, then all of you stay there, literally. Because as he used the words of Lyndon Baines Johnson, it's better for everybody to be inside the house, pissing out, than for some people to be inside the house, pissing in. You don't want to stay in the house where people are pissing in.
Prof, thank you very much. We would like you to please round up now so that we can move on with the program. God bless you, sir.
Okay. So my point is, whatever it is that we do, we must aim to build elite consensus, where there is a common acceptance at the barest minimum of what direction the country should be going. That's what we've not done well in Nigeria. And whatever effort we make should go in that general direction. Thank you.
Right. Sorry, it seems time is I would like to explore more with you, but time is far gone. Okay. Which is the legal. Yes, well, I have time. I have no problem. So let me just take online questions. I have some people who are online who have questions that they want to ask. Can we try and get them?
Jumoke Akintelo, can you please ask your questions?
Good morning, everyone.
This is Jumoke Akintelo, apparently.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being on this platform. My question is this: what is the role of corporate Nigeria in really building a culture of accountability that would now transcend into the society? Maybe we can't fully explore that here, but that's something that I would really like us to start thinking about as a way to begin to reform the society. Thank you.
I think there's
Sir Collins,
maybe in the interim, you can deal with the first.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. How can the corporate sector build a culture of accountability that will transcend into the society? That's the question that was asked. The private sector, let's have the ground rules clearly restated. The private sector operate within the confines of the laws made by the National Assembly, executed by the executive arm of government across the three tiers of government. And so what we do in the private sector is to operate within the rules. And we have what we call corporate governance. I'm sure you've heard that. We try very hard to ensure that all operatives, all organizations in the private sector aspire to be corporate governance champions. And they are doing that. If you look at the flag bearers of corporate Nigeria, go within their systems, you will be amazed at how much different they are from what obtains in the wider society. There are organizations where you can give a bribe. If you do that, you are going to lose your job, no matter your position. It obtains in corporate Nigeria and is pervasive. But that is not what happens in the larger society. So As far as we know, in corporate Nigeria, we've been able to uphold those tenets. We've been able to build very strong structures that is pointing Nigeria in the right direction. And one of my colleagues earlier said that there has been an influx of foreign ownership into the country. One of the advantages of that is that you now have a situation where what obtains in the parent company countries equally obtains in Nigeria. And so you don't play by different rules. The rules that obtain in Brussels is what you have to keep in Lagos. And if you don't do that, you lose your job. So in corporate Nigeria, we don't have any wiggle room to implement anything that is against the rules or the laws of the country. All we need to do is to continue to do this and then hope that the governance structure we have in this country will respect corporate Nigeria, because they don't, as a matter of fact, and it's something we have been struggling with. Let me also add here that we are political, and so we don't really concern ourselves with what party or who is in power. What we want is that using that general term, the basics should be present. And once they are there, then the rest we can build on. Okay.
Let me address that just for a second.
Right. Very briefly, please.
I think going back to what I said earlier, corporate Nigeria is standing out from being a driving force in this respect. The businesses that are owned and operated by Nigerians are mostly small and medium scale businesses, almost in every single industry. The businesses at the commanding heights of industry owned and operated by foreign interests, and they don't have enough of a stake in this kind of geopolitical issues regarding Nigeria. Now, and I can go down the line, technology, Hewlett-Packard, trading, Stallion Group, Ghana Group, just go down the line. Every single industry is dominated by foreign interests. Now, going back to my colleague's issue, where you had with, he said corporate Nigeria is typically abolition. Now, I have a vantage point. I also operate in the United States. So I live there and also in the US. And I know that corporate America is not abolition. They are actively involved in policy development, policy formulation, and policy lobbying in single sector of the industry. So they don't stand aside and say we're not interested. We don't know. So the reason why corporate Nigeria has that position here is because they're not run by Nigerians. So they don't say.
Well, let me take issue with you on that. So I don't think it's because they don't have a stake. It's because of reprisal. I think it's because they're not ready to stick their neck out, because the power of the regulator in Nigeria is excessive, and it is, in fact, I'm surprised that it hasn't been mentioned in the course of what it is excessive. I don't want to say, and abusive, without recourse. It takes me back to what Khadija mentioned earlier on. She said she wanted to talk about my industry. I want to wrap this up. She said, I don't know if there's a particular comment that you want to make, but I make the comment that if we talk in the context of regulator now, I say without recourse, because standard saying, the court is the last vestige of the common man. So if you are a victim of regulatory over overbearance, where do you go? You go to court, it takes a long time, which is not optimal. And you're also not assured of the quality of the judgment that you're going to get. Now, this is sorry? No. I'm not being nice. I mean, this is my industry, and I hope I don't get any reprisal as well. You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is that we all come to it. And in every industry, I think the reality and maybe the takeaway is that the system is indeed broken. And the problem is how to fix. I think we all know the system is broken. How do we fix it? Is it an emphasis on education that we talked about? Is it an emphasis on leadership that we talked about? Is it an emphasis on restructuring that we talked about? I was hoping that we would be able to talk a little bit because we mentioned the Constitution, So we all know, you mentioned the Constitution and how, what is the standard of to be a president when you can't be a director in a ministry? Okay. So, but how do we, the real issue, the real question, which unfortunately I don't think we've really addressed, is how do we get to the solution to this? Is it just that we are saying we'll present ourselves? We're going to try and get into governance. What is it? Where is our solution? Or are we, as some people say, are we cursed?
In times like these, the wide field that gradually merge and build stronger institutions, pretty much to be able to lead the lobbies both sides politically and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It's just engaging. Yeah. Okay, there's a question online, last one. What three things can corporate Nigeria do to begin building or enforcing leadership standards, and how can they be monitored to ensure the desired results? Anybody want to? I think that might be your
lead by example, train the next set of leaders so that they may have integrity, and lastly, try to encourage participation at a grassroots level without necessarily being in the race. That's what I think corporate Nigeria can do.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we'll round up there. Pastor, we have we have a rapporteur who's just going to run down, summarize some of the things that we have discussed here. I don't know, Tommy, do you want to come forward or should we send you? We should send you the mic. Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Tomi Oyeshola, and I must say that we've had great and insightful discussions here at the Rebuild Nigeria Initiative consultation. And thanks very much to all the discussants and participants. So we have looked at the 4 pillars and we have 7 takeaways, all recommendations this afternoon. So basically the critical nuggets for advancing an enabling environment for corporate Nigeria. And the first thing is that there's the need for peace and stability to have an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Corporate Nigeria needs to ensure there is unity. Secondly, consistent planning and consistent implementation for economic growth. So we had said here that what sort of accountability is required because we cannot stumble our way into economic growth, like one of the discussants said, but rather through painstaking planning and consistent implementation. And the third thing is on the emphasis from the discussants and all participants with respect to social infrastructure, the healthcare, education, and all of that. The fourth takeaway here is on the pillar
to define and promote standards in leadership. What we said here is that we need to have a barrier, or rather the barrier to leadership is quite low. The fifth thing is the essence for regionalization and decentralization to foster national restructure and reconciliation. Sixth, corporate and public trust is very vital. And the last but not the least, the lack of education and mentorship. So what are the action steps or action points and the next steps? The first thing being corporate Nigeria needs to ensure there is unity. We need to avoid or stop ethnicity or cultural barriers and religious barriers. Secondly, we need to put in place checks and balances to ensure accountability. Thirdly, for instance, like one of the discussants said, with respect to the power generating sector, over time there has been growth, but if we look at concentric circles that link, and so if there is a problem somewhere, we can easily backfeed. So that's just one of the examples. Fourth thing here is the fact that we need to raise the educational barrier of entry into government and ensure specific standards. Fifth thing here is regionalization. That is, let every region do what they can do best in terms of agriculture, mineral resources, and so on. Also, technology is important. And although there has been resolutions, we've had some resistance, and we need to apply technology in decentralizing. The sixth action point is to come up with policy statements that will attract foreign investors when there is a good business environment or an enabling environment. So good governance would always bring about corporate trust and public trust. Trust enables attraction of business environment. And when this is created, we can attract those investments that we really want to improve the standard of living of our society. And finally, in education, a teacher provides knowledge and information. But in mentorship, the mentors provide life lessons from experiences and how to use those lessons in life. So both are vital in governance and the private sector. So leadership by example, and we should encourage participation at the grassroots level. And that is really what corporate Nigeria should be doing. Thank you.
All that's left is to say thank you all for coming. Thank you for, I need to first focus on our panelists. Mr. Kinga Akinjobi, Mr. Ray Ateli, Dr. Yetunde Khadija. Thank you all for, we've overspent the time. Thank you for giving us your time. I say thank you to Pastor for having me, step up. Thank you for all the initiative and your hard work. Thank you, members, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, my Lord spiritual and temporal, etc., etc. Thank you all for coming. The people in the backstage who are doing all the hard work, recording, etc. The people who are online. Thank you, and I hope it's been useful. And there's some refreshments on behind the glass there. Please stay behind, otherwise it will waste. And my discussants, we're going to have a picture with the pastor by the backdrop, just by the door. So don't rush off and go away. I'm sure people will like also to interact with you whilst we have something to eat. So thank you all very much, and have a great day. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And those who want some more information about Rebuild Nigeria Initiative, please see Olu at the back or register your names. We'll keep in touch with you. If you want to be part of what we're doing and other programs that will do in the future, please also get in touch with us. Shall we, the discussants, please come forward. Let's take a picture very quickly. Thank you. Cameramen or photographers, please come.